Now I'm going to let you all talk. Why are you here? So you heard this title, right? Getting attention to your business. And you thought you'd come. Why? Can anyone just jump in and what stuck out? Scale. Sweet. More attention from your business. It's hard. What? Yeah.
Being a small company, trying to get attention to big companies is just difficult.
It is. That's true. That's true.
To learn how to make people care about your brand out of crap tons of other
That's true, dude. That's hard, right? Cool. Anyone else want to jump in? Yes, getting traffic to your website, important. Very important. Okay. So we talked about this. But read someone's comment when I said, well, we want to get attention to people's businesses. I will read it for you. Get attention? Question mark. What a lackluster and self-degrading way to put it. How about how to gain traction, how to reach out to, or how to truly interact with ... If I wanted attention, I'd post a picture of my ass with my product in the background, like some Kardashian shit. Be authentic, please. So that was a comment. And it makes sense, right? We live in this social economy where it's post something very specific and you get likes. And people get turned off by that. But the truth is that companies, personal brands, have to use some of the same tactics. If your personal brand is posting a photo of your ass with your product in the background like some Kardashian shit, it's okay. If that's how you want to make money, that's fine. But even if it's not, there's still some ways you can learn. And we'll talk about those tactics today. I hope that person isn't here today. But even if you are, I'm really glad that you came, and I will talk to you after. No, it's true. Okay. So customers, right? When you build something, whatever it is, personal brand, you want to sell a business, a startup, you have prospects, people who might be interested in what you do, and you convert them into customers. This is super high level, super high level. The first thing is people find out about you. And then they go and have traffic on your website. Then big companies hit you up. Then you start scaling because more people know about you. Then they trust you and then they buy from you. Our goal today is to talk about multiple channels and platforms on this part, that they find out about you, whoever your they is. Cool? And there's a bunch of channels, right? You can get attention on the internet outside in the real world. The internet is now the real world. But in many, many ways, right? You can make content, you can podcast, you can blog, you can make videos, you can run ads, you can do trade shows. Twitter, Instagram, we're going to be talking about mostly these. You guys know this, I sent you the questions. Content, and then some specific platforms. Cool. And we're going to start introing these people. Any questions before we jump in? Cool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let one person talk one by one. And then they're going to tell you what they do and what's one of the biggest ways they drove traffic to their personal or business brand last year. Then we'll jump into questions. Cool? All right, first up, CJ Finley. Woo! Woo!
Yeah. Hello? Check. How's it going, everybody? First off, I'd like to thank Moby for putting this together. This is awesome to see so many faces in the audience today. My name is CJ Finley. I'm an ex-engineer turned entrepreneur. Too much ADHD to sit at a desk, so I followed my passion and wanted to help other people. So today I help other mission-based people, brands, and businesses thrive. And one of my biggest projects right now is something called Sphere, where we are a soccer-inspired fitness company that is trying to connect people and inspire them to play a great game, both on and off the field. We care more about you connecting with another best friend, soulmate, business partner than we do about how many goals you score. So in terms of how I grew my brand and how I kind of connected with people, that was just events. I love throwing events similar to this and just providing value to people and seeing people connect on a different level.
And Instagram. You forgot Instagram.
So to create those events, I started an Instagram account, and I started with providing value to other people by just shouting their brands out, going to their events, and then collaborating with them to throw some other ideas that we had together. So it started with just providing value to others and being interested in them.
Hi everyone, I'm Meredith Gonsalves. I'm the Global Social Media Manager for Deloitte, if you're familiar with the Big Four professional services firms. So my team manages the global social media presence for Deloitte. It's a very big, very exciting, very stressful job, but I love what I do. I've always worked for big corporations in the financial services sector. It's kind of this weird niche that's not super sexy, but actually pretty influential, and I've really enjoyed growing my career in that sector. Something that comes to mind when I think about what we've done in the last year or so, a lot of what we do for Deloitte Global, which is not necessarily lead acquisition, but talent acquisition. A huge part of our talent acquisition strategy is actually conducted through social media. And if I said Deloitte, and a number of people in the audience kind of rolled their eyes and was like, oh, Deloitte, you know. Imagine a bunch of 22-year-olds when they're thinking about where they work, and they can work for cool startups, and they're not necessarily thinking about Deloitte being a sexy, cool, fun place to work. So we needed to change that perception in the marketplace in order to attract new talent. So we leveraged Instagram to do that. We put our millennial talent, we gave them the keys to our Instagram channel once a week for an entire year, and we did a millennial Instagram story takeover on our Instagram channel, a previously extremely under-leveraged channel for Deloitte because it's Instagram, and what professional services firms use Instagram, and it proved to be extremely fruitful for us because we were putting our own people, millennials, talking about the benefits of why they love working and doing what they do, what they care about. And we saw an extreme increase in people looking to us as a real viable employer coming out of college. So yet leveraging that channel and putting our people in front of that channel to tell our story rather than us telling our story really proved to be a good way of leveraging content for us. Oh, you have
We've all got mics. Thanks for not sharing.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. My name is Timothy Cole. I am co-founder and social media coordinator for Elite Sweets. And what we do is provide baked gluten-free protein donuts, so a healthier alternative towards traditional sweets. The idea started about when I played football at UT about 2 years ago. Me and my teammates, we wanted to find something that was tasty, but also was good for you. And in the protein industry, there really wasn't anything that fit our needs. And from there, like I said, Moby is a guy who is someone who helps people win funding. We met with him and won the WeWork Creator Awards in May, and we've been starting our business since then. A big key for us in gaining attention would be just basically chronologizing. We were just basically documenting our events and different things we're at on social media. That's a big driver. And also just getting in touch with the startup community in your own city. In Austin, like I said, there's always events going on, so just meeting people there, as well as just contacting your local media outlets like KView, this, that, and the third. So we're just trying a lot of different things in 2018, and it proved to work for us.
All right, I'm Thomas Umstattd. I'm the CEO of Author Media, and we help make authors rich and famous online. We do that primarily through education, and most of which is free, actually. So we have a popular podcast, Novel Marketing, and we have some other podcasts as well. And that's the main way I get attention is through the podosphere, but I also dabble in blogging. But can I ask a couple of questions real quick, survey the audience?
I am a, no, I'm kidding.
Right. So who here is a solopreneur? You're starting your own thing. Show of hands. Okay, who here is a freelancer currently wanting to get into this at some point? Any freelancers? Okay. Who here is working on a team for a corporation when it comes to getting attention? Okay, and who here is running a company with one or more contractors or employees? Okay, so mostly solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. Awesome. That's very useful. Thank you. That's all.
That's it. Well, first of all, again, Moby, thank you so much for putting this together. And you guys, thank you so much for showing up here. I'm honored to be here and talk a little bit more about what we do. So my name's Kimberly Jimenez, and I'm a digital marketing strategist. And I'm also the founder of the Business Lounge. So I've done a lot of things in the online space, but most recently we've launched, 2016, we've launched the Business Lounge, and it's an online e-learning platform for online entrepreneurs who are wanting to either launch, grow, or scale their business online through digital marketing and online business. So currently we have the pleasure and honor of serving over 8,000 students every single month in 32 countries. And one of the things that has really worked for us, not just last year, but really since we launched, is YouTube and doing search marketing, right? So getting discovered on these platforms is really hard sometimes when you're, really leveraging Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, any of these social media platforms where you're constantly churning content every single day. And so I quickly learned in the early days of, running social media accounts for hundreds of different companies that utilizing search and figuring out how you can create content one time that can live on throughout the years and get better over time is an incredible strategy that leverages your time in huge ways. So right now, last month actually, we hit 2 million views on our YouTube channel,
Nice.
which was a really cool accomplishment for us. And the crazy thing about that is the videos that get the most amount of views and where people actually discover us were published 4 years ago. So if you're really serious about creating content for the long run and you're committed to doing the work up front, highly, highly recommend leveraging some kind, of search marketing as the core pillar strategy for your content, whether that be blogging or, Pinterest or YouTube. Have at least one platform where people can discover you and you're not constantly depending on churning out, new content every 30 minutes to get someone, to engage with your brand. So that's,
Good.
my recommendation.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Question: who here has unlimited resources to spend on their brand? Oh, nice. Okay, and who here has unlimited resources to spend on their brand, right? And you guys have been doing this for a while, and you've been using tactics. At many points, you didn't know what you were doing. You kept going consistent, making content, interacting with customers, holding events, and then you learn. So wherever you are in your journey, you can still get wherever you want. First question, and I want to kind of get this out of the way. Who here likes to write? Yeah, cool. So it's 2019, feel free to jump in. Why should people still blog when everyone just is on their, oh yeah, I know, I read your blog. When everyone is on Instagram and YouTube, it's like, oh, scroll. Why should people write? What's the short-term and long-term value of a blog for your brand?
Money.
That's a great answer, yeah. Why?
The reason I say that is, funny story about my blog. Me and my friend, I was scared to write and put it out into the world, so me and my friend created a blog that was hidden to everybody else, and we would just critique our own blogs, and eventually I started my Instagram account and started gaining traction there, and then I was like, I need some type of website to validate myself to the audience, so I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna launch my blog, started writing. I created something called Thrive Weekly, where I challenged myself to just write every single week about different topics, and it actually led to someone finding me on LinkedIn who I built a relationship with, and then got investment for my own brand through my blog that I had written to Kimberly's note probably a year before I even got that money. So I just had this intuition that do what other people aren't doing or aren't consistently doing, and blogging is one of them. People won't put long form out there because they think it's a waste of time, but there are people out there that are looking at that and they like to read rather than just seeing quick videos. So there's an older generation that is still reading more than they're watching, and typically they have bigger pockets than all the guys that I'm hanging around, so yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that having a blog, even if you don't actually, so I'll give you an example. Our company primarily, pushes out content through video, but with every single video that we publish, we also publish a blog that accompanies it. Why? We need to leverage traffic. We never, ever, ever build our businesses on someone else's business, right? So these platforms, they have zero incentive of taking their users out of, their actual platform and going to your website and, buying your product. But transactions happen on your site. They happen in your world. They don't happen on Instagram and on Facebook. And that's changing, but I don't think that it'll change in the next 10 years. So you have to always understand that if you're going to attract, eyeballs from a different social network to your own company, you have to own that traffic. And so you never, ever, ever want to only rely on Instagram or only rely on Twitter. The minute the algorithm changes, your company is done. And that happens over and over and over and over again. I see it every single day with entrepreneurs, especially when you're getting started. So investing again in search, even if it's not something that you love to do, even if you're not great at writing, write a paragraph or two and publish it on your own website. Build your own audience. Blogs are so underrated these days, but it's not because people aren't reading blogs. It's because there's shiny new things that are hotter and more sexy than blogging. It doesn't mean that it's dead, and it definitely doesn't mean that you should ignore it. In fact, I think blogging is more relevant today than it ever has been because there's so much competition and so much noise elsewhere. You have to own your own traffic, and you have to do that really strategically if you want to win.
Young people still read blogs. Yes. They discover those blogs through a different medium. A lot of people think that the way to get traffic to your blog is through a broadcast medium where you're sharing once and it's going out to lots of people. But the most powerful way to get traffic to your blog is actually one-to-one. It's me sending an iMessage with your article to my business partner. It's somebody Snapchatting or Facebook messaging one-to-one, be like, you have to read this article. Who's gotten a message like that in the last week from somebody you know? Like, hey, you got to read this article.
Who
Happens
read
all
the article? I'm kidding.
So it depends on who it is. If it's Moby that sends me the article, my gosh, it's just delete it. But if my wife sends me the article, I'm definitely going to read it. No, I'm kidding. The other real big advantage of blogging is that it helps you hone your thinking and your messaging in a way where you can measure that thinking and that messaging. Because you get really great data if you're using Google Analytics or a similar platform, not just on how many people are visiting that page, but how long they're spending there. That time on page is very telling. We have blog posts on our website that people spend 4 or 5 minutes on. We have other blog posts that people spend 20 seconds on. They get the same amount of traffic, year after year. In some cases, these are evergreen posts, but some posts just have that deeper engagement. We're able to know that, and that's very helpful. And so I think these things really help with blogging. And the other thing is that blogging is the most search-friendly form of communication. So Google doesn't really do much with podcasts. So my big frustration as a podcaster is that we don't exist really as far as Google is concerned. Every year they promise to fix it, and every year they just make it more complicated because they launch yet another service. So right now we have Google Podcasts and Google Music Podcasts. Google Play Music Podcasts, which is a totally separate service than Google Podcasts and doesn't even connect with Google Podcasts on your little Google device in your house. It's a total nightmare. Whereas you do a Google search and you're going to get blogs and Wikipedia as a result for almost every search. It's very, very powerful for that. And one real quick tip on blogging. The best people in your organization to write blog posts are the people closest to your customers. The questions that are asked to your salespeople are topics you should be answering in your blog. Because if people are asking your salespeople those questions, they are asking Google those questions. And you know what? Your competitors' customers are asking Google those same questions. And you can suddenly start to get your competitors' customers if you have the best answer to their questions. And so this seems so simple, but literally this is $1 million idea. Answer customer questions on your blog. Done. If you just do that, it's a winning strategy. It's also a winning YouTube strategy. Answer.
We're not there yet. Come down.
Sorry. I'll shut up now, Moby.
Yes, and so who is writing their own blog currently? Are you writing it on WordPress? Keep your hands up. Okay. How many people have the plugin Yoast SEO downloaded on WordPress? Okay. If you don't have WordPress or if you don't have a blog, do that tonight. Second, download the WordPress plugin, Yoast SEO. I'm not sure if other people on the panel have other recommendations for that. But speaking to Kim and Tom's point around searchability, that plugin in it of itself makes it very easy to make your content searchable online by tagging certain keywords and being able to, it actually gives you a grade of how searchable your blog post is, and you can optimize it based on what your grade is, which is really, really useful when you're not an SEO expert, when you're a business person, you're not an SEO expert, but you need a little help from the technical side. You don't need to be a developer to do this. So just a quick tip on blogging if you're not necessarily used to it.
Answer questions. Again, have SEO. And yes.
One more tip. Who uses Instagram as their main platform of social media? How many times do you get asked the same question over and over and over again? And to Tom's point, all the time. I love efficiency. Write a blog about the questions that you get asked over and over and over again, and every time the next person asks you, just put the hyperlink in there, and then you're driving traffic to your own, and then guess what they're going to do? They're going to answer their other friends when they have the question with the same blog, and you start growth hacking that way. So, yeah,
I
good
agree.
point on that one.
So one of the questions that, Thomas, you probably get, and I do, is, you too, how do I start a podcast? And I could answer that every single time, or I could just be selfish and point them to a blog. I get traffic, their question gets answered, and I think I'm super smart. So, 3 in 1. You could do that too. And money.
So people are always asking me, what podcast gear should I get?
Is your mic up?
People are always asking me what podcast gear I should get, and so I just wrote a blog post that actually had all of the affiliate links embedded, and now I just, in Text Expander, I just type -gear, it inserts the URL for that, and I just email it out, and now what normally be a lot of hassle, like, well, here's the basic package, and the medium package, blah, blah, blah. I used to send that email all the time, now I just send them to a blog post, and I make money, because people will buy one or the other of the microphones, and I get a little something, something.
Sweet. Okay, so before we jump into social media platforms and tactics we can use on YouTube and Instagram and actually making video, because it's tough to make video. It's tough to just think of yourself as someone who points the camera at themselves and talks every week, right? It's hard, unless you guys are very confident, good on you. But, so, last point about having an asset that you make content on, like a blog. Why is it important to have an email list? Who doesn't have an email list for their brand here? Oh, not many people. Sweet, so we're gonna keep it super short. I'm gonna pick Kim, and that's it.
Okay, the question is, why should you have an email list?
Yes.
Do you want to make money?
Okay, cool.
It's that simple.
How do you make money on an email list?
No, but seriously, when you have people's contact information, you get to build a much more intimate relationship with them via email, right? So I'm sure all of you guys have email list address books of your friends, and you'll email them links to one thing or the other, or collaborate on a specific project. Email is still extremely personal. And so when you are consistently engaging with your ideal customers, assuming you're doing the job of gathering the right people in your email list, you basically have guaranteed customers. And so if you ask me what is the biggest revenue generator in our company, it's always been our email list, and it will always be our email list, because that is contacts. Those are people that we own, and we don't depend on Facebook to reach them. We don't depend on YouTube to reach them. And so I think having that consistency, building that trust and that value, if you do it every single week and you do it consistently, it's just going to help you grow.
Go ahead.
Okay. One quick thing about email lists, because, and this is actually extremely poignant, because one of my resolutions was to unsubscribe from a bunch of shit that I don't want to read anymore, right? And I'm sure there's a bunch of people in this room who did the exact same thing, just hit unsubscribe a million times. And that's because email is personal. It is a gift that your customer gives you, their email address. So you need to take that gift and use it wisely, meaning value is the term that Kim used, and I can't stress that enough, that what value add are you giving your customer for following or subscribing to your email list? If they're getting the same information that you are publishing on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, then what the hell are they following or subscribing to your email list for? So differentiating your usage of email is extremely important, and providing value, different value in that channel, is equally important.
Yeah, email is personal, but email is also transactional. Think about the kind of emails you get. You get invoices from your vendors. You get receipts from the companies that you purchase things from. You're in a state of mind when you're using email that is a state of mind ready to spend money and expecting to spend money, which is very different from social media. So who here has done networking tonight? Show of hands. Raise your hand if you've done networking. You met somebody interesting, you exchanged a business card. Okay, now show of hands.
One person. Wow.
Who here has made some money tonight? Like you've actually exchanged credit card numbers or somebody gave you cash tonight? Because this isn't the place, right? I may have a product or service you're really interested in, but this isn't really the context to make that transaction. So what would happen is we would exchange email addresses, and then that transaction would happen later, right? After that relationship gets built a little more. Social media is the same way. A lot of people are thinking, oh, I'm going to meet you on social media and you're going to buy my product or service. No, that's weird. So like, don't be that guy. It's like you got to buy my Amway. It's the best Amway. Nobody has Amway like me. It's like, no, don't do that. And that's why email is so important, because you're able to be personal and transactional and have that long-term relationship. So it's got to be part of your strategy. I mean, it just has to be. I mean, there's no other way.
So we kind of talked about kind of summarizing that. Knowing your customer first, right? And when you start thinking about what content to make, not just blogging, we'll talk about podcasting and Instagram and YouTube, but think about the questions that they have, because they all have a problem that they will hopefully pay you to solve, right? What questions do they have around that problem, around their needs, and make content around that. We'll talk about YouTube, Instagram, and then you can sell them on email, because it's transactional. Okay. So, let's say I'll put myself in someone's shoes. I know my customer for socks, whatever. You don't have to talk about socks. But I know my customer, I know the problems they're facing, and I've been blogging for a bit, right? Because I enjoy it. But I've never considered it to be something that I do professionally. I'm an amateur when it comes to like getting attention from my customers' content. I want to scale my influence. What do I start doing when it comes to thinking of a content strategy? Kim, I want to get back to you, then I'll ask, because I know everyone's strategy over here, so I'll ask you specific questions. But Kim, how do I start thinking about a content strategy I can use overall to get to my customers? High level.
Okay. So to reach your customers?
Yes, because I have an idea of who they are now, and what their problems are, right? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think one of the easiest ways to start a really great content strategy is, of course, questions. We already talked about that. Answering your customers' questions, that's day one stuff, like 101, the easiest way to get started. But if you want to start getting more attention, from your actual customers and reaching more people, I think it's really important to leverage collaboration as much as you can, especially when you're just getting started. So go to people who have bigger audiences than you do. Usually when you're starting a blog, maybe your mom and your sister, and maybe if your boyfriend is really nice, he'll read it, but it's crickets. And I know for me, the first 2 years, no one really read anything I wrote, right? I just kept doing it because I knew it would pan out at some point. But I wish I would have leveraged collaboration sooner, because that would have given me the ability to tap into other people who were a couple steps ahead of me. I could offer great value to their audiences and then reach them in bigger ways and kind of bring those people into my world as well. Start looking at, okay, how can I actually create products for these people? What are some of the solutions that they're looking for in the marketplace? So start identifying 5 to 10, potential collaborating partners who have larger audiences than you do. And here's a really important thing. You have to find people who have the ideal customer that you're looking for, right? It can't just be random people who have huge audiences, because then you're gonna fill up your traffic with people who don't care about your product. And that's not what you wanna do. At the end of the day, you have to always reverse engineer the process and think about what is the end goal. The end goal is to sell more, right? To share my product, to share my service, and make an actual tangible difference in people's lives. And if you can start by collaborating with other people, other creators, that's an amazing first step. It doesn't cost you anything but time. And usually when you're just getting started, you have more time than you have money, right? So a lot of people say, oh no, go straight to Facebook ads or like try Google. No. You haven't validated your idea. You still don't really know. You think you know your audience, but you don't actually know your audience until you get to a certain level with your traffic and your email list. So start small and start looking at collaborating opportunities, and just do that until you see significant, traction with your blog.
And that's good SEO.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's great SEO.
Tim, you guys are in the fitness space, right? You make donuts. Like when I go to your Instagram, I see you collaborating with so many gyms, athletes. How do you? Because you guys are a bunch of like young graduates, right? How the
Definitely.
hell? What?
Most definitely.
Most definitely. Yeah. The young or the graduate part? What?
Both.
Okay. So, how do you go to athletes and people who have a lot of big audiences, and how do you convince them, hey, I want to work with you? Give me a chance.
Well, it started out, like I said, with just knowing everyone has like at least 5 or 10 friends that they know in some type of way that can help them. Me being in the athlete space, a lot of my friends are athletes who are professional athletes or people who are starting businesses in gyms and this, that, and the third. So for us, we started with people we knew, like certain gyms. On it is another gym that we collaborate with. There's other entrepreneurs here in this space that do things in health and wellness. So what we did was just, reach out to them and say, hey, we have a product that aligns well with you guys as well. Let's do a giveaway. And the best thing for customers, people who have never tried your product, is doing a giveaway, because everyone loves free stuff. And what better way to like tell people about your brand by giving away something? So honestly, we do that. And the first time we tried it, the traction was crazy, and I didn't know that was a good way to gain followers and gain attention to your brand. But just saying like, hey, tag 2 people in this product, tag 2 people in this post who could, use this product, and you just showcasing other people. Friends would be like in the comments like, hey, have you heard of this? And more people will start noticing your brand. And just each time you do that, I say find something creative to engage them. Just like not just, hey, tag 2 people. Like next time, hey, like drop a video of something you do in your free time that provides you, stress free, or something cool that engages them as well. Not just giving them out free stuff, something that they will remember in the long term. They'll definitely want to refer to other people.
Yeah. So when an example is, once you know your customer and where they are, right? You try to figure out, how do I get to them? So when I started the podcast, my focus was young entrepreneurs and founders. And I thought about, where do I go find them? And it was right here, like places like this. And what I would do is I would go to the people who would run this, like Reese. And Reese wasn't there yet, but there was this guy named Jake. I would just say, hey, can I host a workshop? Because I know something about XYZ. This might be valuable. It was completely free. And I would just try to get into places by giving free stuff. How much do you have to volunteer for this just to get your foot in the door? Anyway, so that led to 800,000K. Does anyone here not know where their customers are at all? It's okay to just nod.
I'm
and
going to admit to that, Moby.
Okay, you just wink at me. I can't see shit. Anyway, but it's important to know your customers, right? Because I didn't for a while. But once you know where they are, what their questions are, we'll talk about platforms, and where they are, you can get to them through collaborations. Where else can I go find my customers? How would I find them on Instagram? How would you find millennials on Instagram? Because they don't tag themselves as, yes, I'm a young #millennial. How do you find your customers?
Money. No. Well, on Instagram, it was a challenge, right? Well, okay, back up. No channel is created equally, and I think we're going to get into channel platforms a bit. Simply knowing that millennials dominate the Instagram channel helped us know where to execute a content strategy like the millennial Instagram story takeovers, right? 75% of the Instagram audience is between the ages of 20 and 35. So they're there. Okay, it's just a matter of getting in front of them with the right strategy. What we found was when we did that particular campaign is the people that we had telling our story were our millennial talent. They were the people who were leveraging Instagram, whether or not they were taking over the Deloitte channel or not. So they were, their friends and their community and their networks were the ones who were suddenly so interested in what Deloitte was up to. And that's exactly what we wanted, because it was much more compelling for people to hear about life at Deloitte when someone was talking about it from their perspective, as opposed to us saying how great we are and patting ourselves on the back.
You're a podcaster. Why do you have so much trouble?
She keeps handing me a microphone. It's turned to, yeah. Never underestimate the power of qualitative research. So we live in a world where it's all about data, and data is really important. But what can get lost in the data, especially when you have aggregated data, is the individual person. I took a break from running Author Media. I kind of stepped back, it continued running without me, and for a year and a half, I was the marketing director for a marketing firm working on big budget projects for big budget companies. And when I came back to Author Media, I felt a little out of touch with authors because I hadn't been working with them as actively for that year and a half. And so what I did was I sent out an email with a Calendly link to all of our existing clients and said, hey, free 15-minute consultation. Ask me whatever questions you have. I'll be your free marketing coach for 15 minutes. The goal of these calls was not to sell them anything. It was to figure out what questions they were asking and reconnect with the needs of the audience, of my audience. And it was so valuable. I got to basically, in that time, it was a lot of calls. And for an introvert, in a sense, it was like the special hell, because it was like one call right after another, talking to people. But it was really educational, because I got to start seeing the individuals again, instead of, because everyone can kind of blur together, and you start to speak to the aggregate. And there is no average person. When they were measuring cockpits for airplanes, they were, Americans got bigger between World War I and World War II, and we didn't fit in the airplanes anymore, and it was causing crashes. It's like, we need to get a different size cockpit. So they started measuring, and they were like, we need to figure out how many people actually fit this average. And they checked, and 0 pilots actually fit the average measurements for a pilot. And they realized, oh, there is no average person. There's no ideal pilot. We need seats that slide forward. So the seat in your car that slides forward and back, that was developed by the United States military to save pilot lives trying to land on aircraft carriers that couldn't see over the dash because they were 2 inches shorter than the average. And it's really important not to forget that individual person in all of the data. So talk to your customers.
All right, so let's pretend that if you do one thing again and again, you're not crazy and it will actually get you results. So I'm going to ask you very specific things like, I'm going to pick a platform, probably Instagram, podcasting, and video, because Instagram really hot. And you can talk about more too. What should I do over the next 3 months, again and again, CJ? Again, every day if you tell me to get to XYZ followers. Because I think my customers over there, I know the questions that they want, that they want answered. I know their needs. I'm not like averaging them out, but I think I know what they want. But I'm just starting off. I have like 50 followers, and I want to sell my shit. How do I do it? What do I do? And imagine this is very straightforward, because no one thing will fit your own. You'll make mistakes. You'll pick up one thing from each person. But let's talk about like simple, straightforward, ideal world. Like, what should I do for 3 months? Again and again and again.
First question I would ask you is, why do you want followers?
Because I think...
Good question.
Yeah. Because I think that it's going to make me money. It's the product that I have. I think the number of followers, it gives me credibility, it gives me validation from other people, and it makes me feel good, but I can also sell stuff.
So I would say 4 or 5 years ago, yes. In a world today where you can buy followers, you can buy bots, you can buy all those things, not so much true. All the true people that are on Instagram, I can tell within 2 seconds whether someone bought their followers or not, bought their likes. If they post within 5 minutes and they have 500 likes, fake bots, it's not true. So what I would be more focused on is, rather than finding followers, finding your tribe, and that all relates back to sitting with your customers. When I first moved to Austin, I probably had 70 meetings within 30 days. My goal was to set a meeting, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And my wife, who's sitting in the audience, was like, are you freaking crazy? Like, when are you going to make some money? But I knew that if you sit with your customers and you start asking questions like Tom said, and you provide them value, if I couldn't provide them immediate value with my background, I would connect them with someone with value. And my entry point to that was Instagram. I would sit and follow hashtags of people in the local audience, and then I would sit down with a personal trainer. I would sit down with a chiropractor, a physical therapist, because I'm passionate in health and wellness, and then I would understand what that they need and see if I could provide them that value. And then in terms of like tactics on Instagram, as soon as I met them, I would shout them out. I would be the one initiating everything. I never cared about followers. I cared about how can I provide an excellent experience in every exchange that I ever have. So if I'm sitting down and having coffee, I'm going to buy you that coffee, because then you're immediately going to associate with me with a good experience right from the get-go. And then when we sit down, it's me listening more than I'm talking, asking what questions you have in regards to your life, your love life, your family, your business, whatever it may be. And then I see where I can provide that value into it. And Instagram is an extremely powerful tool to figure out local audiences where you can actually go in, meet people, and provide value with whatever you're passionate about.
Yeah, so coming from the big topic, so once you know who they are, find the hashtags that they use. Hashtags are extremely useful because you can follow them directly right now. And then when you talk to people, just shout them out so that you have an interaction. And just be nice to them. Because I see whenever you interact with someone, you are very nice to them on Instagram right after, too. You were nice to me. It felt so good.
And I have a really
you were
big...
nice to me, too.
Be nice.
I'm remembering now.
Be kind. Like, I have one big tip also about, like, we forget on Instagram that if you see a person across the street, you're not going to be like, hey, can I have coffee with you? The person's going to be like, even if they're my friend, they're going to be like, what the hell? But people will reach out to me on Instagram and be like, let's grab lunch. And I'll be like, well, like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. I don't know this or that. What I would start doing is like, just like there's a sales cycle with your business, there's a sales cycle on Instagram. What you do is you start liking their photos. Then maybe like a week later, you comment on one of their photos. And then that person sees you. They go to your Instagram. They're like, oh, who's this John Doe, whatever it may be. And then once they start seeing you, go to their stories. As soon as you connect with their story, like I have, this is an actual real life story where my buddy got some investment money because he did the sales cycle and he saw this guy that he wanted to reach out to. He was a mentor, he's a public speaker, and instead of like going, hey, let's meet up, what he did was he started liking his stuff and then he commented on it, and then I was like, you need to go to one of his events. Go to his event, introduce yourself in person, don't say anything about meeting up. Then eventually he made a story about little kids and the public speaker being with his kids, and my friend didn't have a dad, so he didn't have a dad growing up that was there for him, so he connected with that guy and say, I love that you're running a full-time business, but you put your kids first. I would love to buy you coffee sometime. This really hits home with me. Bought him coffee, and now they have a great relationship, all because of he waited and was patient and wasn't really like, hey, I want to meet up with you. I want this. I want that. He started thinking about how can I be a value, even be a value to this person that I'm reaching out to.
Just like dating, calm it down.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So once you have some followers, man, like how do you engage with them? Because you talked about story takeovers. How do you engage with them, make them trust you at all? Because they can follow you, cool, but they can still see your feed and say, well, Deloitte's boring, or this person, this is not what I'm looking for. Why do I follow this person?
Yeah, so outside of Instagram, at Deloitte specifically, and with companies that I work with, we work a lot on establishing really specific channel strategies so that we're offering specific content on the channels, leveraging what the channel does best. And so our content looks, it's all branded the same. It's all coming from the same Deloitte voice, or when I advise clients on their same voice, they've honed in on a particular voice or expertise, but the content looks very different. The value and the formatting and everything looks really different depending on the channel, and it's speaking to the audience on that channel. I mean, I work with an audience on LinkedIn that's almost 2 million, right? And on Twitter of 350,000. There's a lot of people within that group, that following, lots of different subsets. So I have to be very strategic on how I'm positioning content for certain groups of people. I recognize that there's a lot of people in this room who probably don't have budgets for social media promotion. However, there's something to be said for even starting to do initial A/B testing or taking a small portion of your budget for marketing and allocating it towards paid social. We live in a world where Mark Zuckerberg is making a lot of money because the algorithms on Instagram and Facebook are such where your organic reach is going to only be about 1 to 3% of your following, which is why followers isn't that valuable, because it doesn't really matter. However, if you have a really honed in content strategy and you can leverage targeting and get in front of the right people, now you've really got something. So even if it's just $50 or $100 a month that you're allocating towards paid, I would highly recommend it. If you don't know anything about paid social, educate yourself on it or come talk to me. I'm happy to talk through strategies there.
So if I could give you any advice, assuming you don't have a team,
That's what they're here for.
This doesn't apply. It's to play to your strengths. So if all of this discussion about Instagram just makes you feel exhausted, Instagram is not for you. If you have spent this entire time, 10 years of Facebook, and you've never really embraced Facebook, Facebook is not for you, and you're never going to make it for you. As long as you're the main person doing this, if it doesn't come naturally to you, it's not going to come naturally to you. And one of the things I do as a marketing person is I try to find someone's strengths so we can play to those strengths. And this is one of the nice things. There's so many platforms back here. These play to all kinds of different strengths. Are you really comfortable on your feet talking? Do you like to talk? Podcasting. Like, people don't have to look at my face on a podcast. It's really great. It plays to my strengths. Are you comfortable with video? The idea of editing video, is that fun for you? Maybe YouTube, maybe creating Facebook Live videos. If the idea of being on camera makes you like terrified, don't do that. Play to your strengths. Find your strengths. We're no longer in school. So when you were in school, if you got 4 A's and a D, what do your parents are like, hey, what do you got to work on? Do they say, hey, good job on those 4 A's? They say, no, you got to pull your D up and make it at least a B, right? Now that you're a professional, you find somebody else to do the D or don't do the D at all. You don't like bookkeeping? Hire somebody to do your bookkeeping, right? You don't know like, oh, I can't start a business yet because I just don't know how to like renovate an office and like move in the chairs and like all that stuff. I don't know how to paint the walls. Hire somebody to paint the walls. This is the brilliant thing about being an entrepreneur is that you get to craft a life where you play to your strengths. And I just want to give you that permission because we've been really focusing on Instagram. I don't do Instagram at all. Like I seriously am only on Instagram to see photos of my baby that my wife posts on Instagram. Like I have posted 3 things to Instagram and I've been on Instagram since the very beginning because I was a social media guy. I'm like, I'm going to get on Instagram at the very beginning. And I'm like, this is not for me. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. So I don't use it. And that's working out for me. So don't feel like you have to do any of the specific tactics or any of the specific platforms. Now, if you have a Deloitte budget and you can find a person who's really good at Instagram and you can pay them $60,000 a year to handle it for you, great. But I'm assuming most of you don't have that kind of budget. You're the person, play to your own strengths.
What's your Instagram handle? Just so everyone here follows you. Who says I'm kidding?
I did have a problem tagging you.
Same.
Yeah. So Tim, do you want to finish off this Instagram conversation about, and you talk about some tactics that you use on a daily, weekly basis?
Yeah, I just wanted to say to piggyback on Meredith and CJ and Thomas. There's a bunch of different social media tactics and social media channels. So figure out the best ones that are working for you, and be consistent when you post. Like followers don't matter, but when you're gaining these followers, what is going to keep them continuing to want to follow you? So figure out what do you want to educate them about? What are the things you want to say on your page? And that way, when they're constantly, like, you figure out the best times to post and when best time your followers are looking, find out what are they interested in seeing, because they just don't want to see you post photos. Like, I'm figuring that out now. You got to continue to grow and feel like what ways can I continue to engage them and continue to get their attention, because them clicking that follow button is them gaining, like, hey, I'm following you. I'm taking my time out to look at you. What are you gonna, and like, what are you getting me? Are you educating me? Are you making me better at the end of the day? If not, I'm gonna unfollow you. So that's the biggest thing I would say. So continue to just stay consistent and continue to just make sure your followers are gaining something out of following you.
Consistency and value?
Yes.
Cool. So, all right, so shifting gears. Podcasting, right? Personal branding or personal brand or your startup. Who here wants to start a podcast this year? Raise your hands up high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Listen. Who here is podcasting? Oh, right now. Sweet, okay. How do you use podcasting? Because it's easy, it's not easy to podcast, but you record something and you push it on iTunes podcast. What do you do with it now to get customers, to get attention?
Great question. So there's 2 major podcast strategies. In terms of attention, the easier strategy is also the more effective strategy. So if your goal is attention, to get the word out about you and your business, you don't actually necessarily need your own podcast. What you need is a podcasting setup and the willingness to reach out to other people's podcasts. So you reach out to Moby and be like, hey, Moby, can I be a guest on your podcast? I see you talk about X. I can talk about why it's really similar to X. Can I be on your show? And Moby's like, oh, the Fire Show is amazing. You're amazing. I'd love to have you on my show. And suddenly he is introducing you to his entire audience. And he's granting you all of the rapport and authority and engagement that he's built up over all of these years with his audience. And he's doing the editing for you. He's posting it to iTunes for you. He's doing all of the work. All you do
Thomas, his company
Although-
does my editing.
So my podcast production company actually will do the work for Moby, who will do it for you. But the idea is when you're a guest on somebody's show, they're doing all of the work and introducing you to their audience. It's really powerful, and you can get an incredibly high-quality podcast microphone for $100. It's really cheap, and you can get a decent one that people can almost not tell the difference for $50. Like the gear back when I was a kid was really expensive. You kids these days, you don't know how good you've got it. We had to record our podcasts uphill in the snow. It was terrible. You had to know what an RSS feed was. You had to get your enclosures correct. Oh my gosh, it's so easy now. So that's the easy way, is to be a guest on somebody else's show. The next step up from that would be to start your own show. And I will say podcasters like to interview other podcasters because they know they're going to sound good. A lot of people, when they're guests on podcasts, they just use their built-in microphone on their laptop and it sounds terrible. And for high-end podcasts, they just won't have you on. And for really high-end podcasts, they will mail you a microphone. If you do enough guest interviews, you'll eventually be mailed a microphone from a high-end podcast who is willing to spend the $50 so that their show doesn't sound terrible because you're trying to use your MacBook Pro to do the podcast interview on Zoom. Don't do that. Use an actual microphone. As a podcast production guy, this is like my big pet peeve. I don't know if you can tell. It's like, just get a good microphone. Starting your own podcast doesn't have to be hard. There's a lot of services, a lot of websites that will handle the technical bits for you. Or you can work with a podcast production company. There's a Facebook group that Moby and I organize. It's the Austin Podcasters Community. And there are studios all over town, including one right here in this building, at varying prices. The one here is free, I think, still.
Yeah, it's free.
It's free, where you can record your podcast. In fact, Galvanize even provides the equipment. Other studios are set up differently, but there's some really good ones down south. There's some really good ones up north. And there's tons of companies that can produce it for you. So if you're cash rich, a podcast is just an expenditure of money. But if you're time rich, even a little bit, they're not hard to make on your own. And it's a really powerful and really intimate connection. I would say it's, of all of the networks up here, it's the most intimate because it's created alone and it's consumed alone. When I'm listening to your podcast, I'm alone in my headphones. I'm alone on my in my car. And you'll notice the sorts of topics addressed on podcasts often are very intimate topics. People are sharing like their failures and their defeats and their stories, and it's a really powerful engagement in that way. That said, it's a really terrible mechanism for selling people stuff on the podcast, right? Because if I'm on the treadmill at the gym and I hear your offer, I'm not going to be like getting off the treadmill and tapping on my phone if I'm driving down the road. I'm not calling to action. So you still need to have email as a part of that strategy. All of you do email. It's my theme here tonight. So podcasting alone is not enough, but podcasting is really powerful, and I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, did everyone sign in, by the way, in the start? That's how I got your emails. Okay, so that sounded evil, but okay. Kim, so you do podcasting, you do live video, but let's talk about video, because that's something that you really do. How would someone start making video on a regular basis if they want to start? Who is making like video on a regular basis? Sweet. Who wants to start this year? Cool. So how would people do that?
Yeah, so I think that the first thing to realize is technology should not hold you back, right? One of the first questions I get whenever someone wants to start their own YouTube channel is, what camera should I use? And like, what microphone? And how do I get the lighting right? And so you want to start as simple as possible. If you guys do video, which a lot of you do, you know it is very hard. The majority of YouTube channels don't get past like their first 12 videos because it's very time consuming. There is not just, creating the content and figuring out your outline, but then you have to get the lighting right and set up your entire system and then make sure that you're shooting it correct. And oops, you forgot to turn on your mics and you have to do it again. And then there's the whole editing process and uploading and making sure that you have, all of your links set up and you're leveraging YouTube cards. It's a lot. And so I would say keep it as simple as possible. Like most of you guys do have smartphones, right? Can you show me your smartphone right now? Anyone? Yes? Awesome. You all have smartphones. Use that. When I first started my channel, the very first video, don't go look for it. The very first video that I shot was shot on like my iPhone 4, and it was horrible. Like it didn't even have, it wasn't even HD. And so just get started. You have to just put stuff up there and don't try to make it perfect. I was speaking to one of actually you follow Sean Cannell, right?
Yes.
Yeah, on YouTube. Okay, so he says that he's an amazing YouTube expert, and he says like your first 100 videos on YouTube are practice runs. So don't even worry about getting them perfect, figuring out like you have to look perfect and sound perfect. No, just get started. Like shoot yourself. Even if it's please use horizontal view right on your phone. Do not shoot vertical on YouTube, but at least get started and don't try to make it perfect. The second thing that's super super important is batch your videos. Videos are very hard to produce. They are very time consuming. So if you can take one day out of your month and shoot 4 videos, you have one new piece of content every single week that's going out, and you can set it and forget it. You can schedule it. You don't have to like scramble every week to figure out what you're going to post about or what you're going to upload that week. So highly, highly recommend just starting with something simple. And if you don't even want to use your camera phone, get a really inexpensive like webcam. Like I started with a Logitech webcam, and it was $50 on Amazon. I popped that on my laptop, and I started just shooting tutorial videos. By the way, if you're shy on camera, you don't have to be on camera to make video work for you and make video work really well. You can always just use a screencast and teach people how to do stuff, or demo a product with your hands. Tons of YouTube channels, you have no idea who the actual person behind the video is because they never show you their face. They're just showing you their hands if they're demoing a product or shooting a tutorial on their computer. So don't be afraid to just get started. You have to commit and just do it. Don't even close your eyes and hit publish. It's fine. Your first 100 videos will always be practice runs.
And real quick, if you run a video production company, raise your hand. There are people in this room who can help you, and there are people floating around this room with fancy cameras. I bet y'all run production companies, right? So go up to one of these people with a fancy camera, and so you can learn how to do it, which is way more fun and cheaper. Or you can hire, Austin is like the best city if you're looking for video people because they're all competing with each other and they're super cheap. And I don't know what y'all charge to be here, but I bet Moby just smiled and winked at you. And
That was CJ. No, I smiled at him. Okay. Cool. All right, so I want to open up the floor for a question. Before we do that, one tip only. One thing for someone who came here today and heard all of this. Based on your thing, I mean, you could just talk about Instagram, even if Instagram might not be half the people's thing.
More than Instagram.
I know, but you're good at it. One tip, and we'll go.
Care. Just care what you're doing. I think the biggest thing with yourself and with every relationship that you build, I think it's very evident in all the platforms that when somebody reaches out to me and they're just looking to gain a follower or do something for themselves, the way that I went into Instagram was I wanted to document my life of me quitting my job and going on a mission that was bigger than myself and helping other people. Now, that's not to say that everybody has to do that same thing, but I think when you're using these social platforms, it comes off, at least in today's world, they can tell if you're authentic and genuine, or if you're just trying to grow your following. So I think that tends to happen with people get obsessed with growing their following because they're not surrounding themselves with why are they even on the platform in the first place. So when I create videos and write blogs, it's all about me getting better than I was the day before. One of the things that I like to say is we're better than we were yesterday, we're worse than we were tomorrow, but we're great today. So everything that you're doing, make sure that you put your full foot forward, and like Kim said, just do it. And then what you do is you put it out into the market. The market will say, okay, this sucked, or this was okay, or this was great. The cool thing is, though, that if you put something out tomorrow that has 1 million views, the next day, the funny thing is, your next post might not get that many views. So it's very humbling experience, and I think the way to ride the wave is to just care more about what you're doing and what your why is and what your passion is, and that'll rub off on other people, and you'll be set for everything that you're doing.
Sweet.
You kind of stole mine a little bit, but it's okay. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and I think it was a running theme on the panel tonight, was just start. And did I? Okay. Well, so something that I didn't mention when I was initially introducing myself is about 4 years ago, I got laid off from my third job in a row in a matter of 3 years, and I started a blog because I needed to transition my career and I needed to transition my mindset. And I started a blog called Job Offers and Bad Boyfriends, and I talked about the parallels between job hunting and dating. Let your mind run wild with that one, right? The bad kisser with the big wallet. You know what I mean? Okay. Anyway, what ended up happening as a result of that is I built a brand off of this blog, and it positioned me well for a job in social media and branding, and here I am now. But that blog where I just started writing and I just started putting out content and I just started reacting to my my just blog readers. I wasn't trying to get anything out of them. I was simply just trying to gauge what the appetite was for content like this in the marketplace. And so I just started, and it really, really helped me transition and do what I ultimately did. So if I have any advice for you, and similar to what Kim said at the very beginning, how pieces of content that she published years ago are converting customers now, the piece of content you write tomorrow could get you the lead that you're looking for in a couple of years. And I know you don't want to hear that, but I think this is a long con that we're talking about up here, and you just have to have patience and start.
I'm just gonna piggyback what she said. I know a lot of us in here are overthinkers, and we like to be perfectionists, and that'll be our biggest downfall. We're never like starting things. So I said, like, all the advice that you've gained today, try at least one thing this week. Just one thing. Don't try to do multiple things. Just one thing, and stick to it, and just really test the results. And as you get a hold of that one thing, add another thing. You know what I mean? It's chess, not checkers out here. So just trust me. Just think of the long run.
Love. Ultimately, it's really easy to get distracted by the technology. And what we have to constantly remind ourselves is that on the other side of that technology is always a human being. A human being with the same hopes and fears and dreams that you have. And if you love that person well, it will show. You will want to listen to them. You'll want to provide value. You'll want to take risks, right? The Bible says perfect love casts out all fear. So love your customers. And I know that sounds really weird and hippy-dippy, but this is Austin, so we can get away with that, right? And don't get so dazzled by the metrics and by the technology that you forget the human on the other side of the keyboard. And if you keep that human in mind, that's the top button on the dress shirt, and all the other buttons will line up after that. And if you get that wrong, if you don't like your customers, if you don't care about your customers, nothing else will matter. You can have the best strategies and the coolest camera for your videos, and it'll come through, the fact that you don't love your customers. So love, and yeah, that's my word.
That was beautiful.
How do I follow that up? I mean, like, anything I say, it's just not going to be as cool as that. But I would say two things. Do the work and just be a rebel. Don't buy into the hype and the trends and all the crazy noise that happens online. I've been doing this a long time, and I think that, for people like Thomas, who are OGs, you've seen trends come and go, and things fluctuate and change. At the end of the day, you have to be willing to put in the work today and make sure that you understand that, like Meredith said, this is a long con, right? You're playing the long game. You're not looking for instant gratification. Immediately, that differentiates you from 99% of other want-to-be entrepreneurs, right? People are so used to instant gratification in this day and age that they're not willing to do what it takes to succeed. If you do the work day in and day out, regardless of how you feel that day or the circumstances that surround you, you are going to win, because the majority of people don't do the work. They try it for a couple weeks and it just doesn't work out for them the way they expected, or they get tired, or life gets in the way. There's a million other excuses that you could use not to actually implement and be a rebel. So go against the grain, do what you do, be authentic, and always do the dang work, because at the end of the day, that is the one thing that will get your results every single time.
Preach. Preach.
Thank you. Before we start Q&A, and y'all can just go to the bathrooms, grab some beer, grab some pizza if you want. Please give a big round of applause for everyone on the panel. Woo!